everybody, welcome back. I'm not sure if this lighting works or not, but I'm just gonna go with it. So I know it's been a little bit since I posted, but that's slightly due to the fact that I got sick, and just because as well as I was putting off filming again, but I am back to talk about all the books that I read in January. And before I talk about them, I want to say a huge thank you to all the support that the last video got, which was the bookshelf tour. Got over 100 views, which is crazy, so thank you guys so much. But starting off with the first book that I read in the new year, and that was The Nature of Middle-earth by J.R.R. Tolkien. And I think the best way that I could describe this book is a non-fiction book about Middle-earth itself, because this is definitely not like Lord of the Rings. It's not a narrative or a story. It's more facts and the generations of elves, like here's the number charts that are throughout this book. And it was a little hard to read at times, and there was like 17 pages left, but it wasn't even really Tolkien's work. It was more notes by the editor, so I didn't finish that. And normally I would feel bad, but in this case I didn't. And yeah, this was a little hard to read at some times, and this one did not get a reading because it's not really a story, it's more facts. But there were some good, interesting parts about it, like the origins of Gandalf and the wizards, and what races in Middle-earth can grow beards and stuff. So it was definitely interesting, and I would recommend this to you if you wanted to know more about Middle-earth itself. Next I have this really cute treasury of stories for children. I got this, that was baby. I got this at a sort of antique store, and it's super cute. It's got these really cute illustrations. This is from my favorite story, which was A Home for Tandy, and it's about Tandy the elf whose home blew away in a storm. But this was super cute. The illustrations were really fun. Baby wants up on the windowsill and she can't jump herself. But yeah, I feel like I'm repeating myself here, but this was super, super cute, and I really liked most of the stories in it. This one, which is the fir tree or the pine tree, had a lot of really pretty sketch style illustrations, like just black and white ones. Then this was definitely in the upper levels of the books I read this month, like towards the top 3, and that was Jo's Boys by Louisa May Alcott. This is the treasury, so it has all 3 of the Little Women novels in it, but Jo's Boys is the last of them, and I really liked it. The characters really grew throughout this book, and I gave it a 4-star. The only thing I would say I had a problem with was the ending, and it was because we spent so much time growing the characters, getting to know them and their flaws and their strengths, and then the end was sort of like A, B, and C died, and E, F, G lived happily ever after in their marriages. So the ending felt a little bit rushed, but I really like her writing style and just how sweet and comforting her books are. So definitely glad I read that and sort of finished off the Little Women novels, because I don't think there are any more than Little Women, Little Men, and Jo's. I'm definitely happy I read this. I had it on my shelf for a little while and I needed to read it, so I'm glad I did. Then we have probably my favorite book out of this whole month, and I am so happy because I just picked this up at a thrift store for like $1, just because of the cover and the back sounded interesting, but that is The Cottingley Secret by Hazel Gaynor. Now this is 2 different timelines, one in 1917 to like 1921, and then the other one's present day. And in the present day one, you're following Olivia, and her grandfather just passed away, and he leaves her his bookshop that's in Ireland, and also this old manuscript that is a biography by Frances Griffith, I think who is the character you follow in the 1917 timeline. And what's really cool is everything that happens in the past timeline actually happened in real life, and that's the Cottingley Fairy story, which is Frances Griffith and her cousin, which Elsie, I forgot her name, photographed real fairies playing at the Beck, and it sort of became this nationwide sensation in England. And I really, really loved this book. I've never read anything by this author, but her writing style was so pretty and lyrical and just flowed so well. And I think the only reason I didn't give it 5 stars was sometimes there were some parts where we really slowed down and were like going off on little side quests that didn't feel super necessary to the story. So I really loved this book, and she has some other novels that I want to read, but then I don't have a physical copy of this book. I listened to it on audiobook, and that was Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. After fighting with my audiobook account, I finally got it to work, so I was super happy about that. Tress of the Emerald Sea I gave a 3.75, and I did really like it. And it follows Tress, who lives on this rock island in the middle of the ocean of the Emerald Sea, and on her planet the ocean is made out of spores that can be deadly if you get them wet, and nobody is supposed to be able to leave the island. That's sort of like a law there. And her and Charlie, I would say they really like each other. And Charlie's is like upper in society. He's the Duke's, I think, son. I don't know if he was a duke or higher or a noble or something. And anyways, his dad sort of ships him off to get married because he doesn't like him and Tress being together. And Charlie gets taken by the evil sorceress that lives on this planet, and Tress decides to go and save him. And I really liked Tress. She was super funny, and I also liked that she was an ordinary person who had to really rise up to these challenges instead of being someone who's like already ready for them, I guess. The only thing is the narrator, because it's told from like someone in the stories telling the story, like writing it down. And apparently the narrator is a character in other Brandon Sanderson books, which I've only read the Stormlight Archive and not even all of those, and the Cytonic books, or Skyward books, which is a sci-fi series by Brandon Sanderson. Anyways, the narrator would kind of go off on these long rants about something, and it was a little hard to focus when he, like, these long philosophical talks about time and friends, and they were interesting to listen to, but sometimes I got a little lost there. So, as well as Brandon Sanderson's writing style in this was very whimsical, very different from his other books that I've read, like Stormlight Archive, it's gritty and there's a lot of war going on, but this was definitely very whimsical and light, so it was fun to see this other side of his writing skills, and I overall did enjoy it. It was a very magical, whimsical listen, I guess. I probably won't buy a physical copy just because I would rather spend my money on other books, I suppose. Next, I have another audiobook, and that is A City of Starlight and Ash. I listened to this on audiobook, and I didn't love it. So, I don't even remember the author. I'll put it up on the screen as well as a picture of the cover. Hopefully, if editor me figures out how to do that. And I'm not even gonna lie, I have like 30 more minutes or something left of this book, but the main sort of plot twist, grand reveal already happened, so I don't think anything's gonna change my mind. And this book follows 2 point of views, and Case Shackley and then Hallie something. And they live in this world, and the government puts together this group of people to go to this continent that they haven't been to forever to try and form an alliance with the original people that lived on the planet, because it's supposed to be like humans traveled from Earth and crash landed on this planet and then ran out of fuel, I guess, and can't leave. And they're sort of at war with this other group of humans. So the government sends this group of people to go and try and make an alliance with the original inhabitants who sort of disappeared. And I did not like Case Shackley, who's one of the points of views. It was supposed to be, and this book was marketed as enemies to lovers. It says that on the back. And when I think of that, I think of an enemy like opposite sides of the war. They hate each other so much they're like trying to kill each other. This was more like they just were rude to each other the whole time and found each other annoying. It wasn't like enemies. And Case Shackley, I did not like listening to his point of view at all. I know he was supposed to sort of be like this closed off, angry, brooding person because he has this traumatic past or whatever, but he just felt really immature. He blamed everybody else when his actions had consequences and never took accountability for anything, and was extremely rude to the other character, Hallie, the whole time. And Case Shackley, he's like, his dad is the leader of the military, and some of his brothers go with him on this journey. And I liked his brother. His brother was nice, but Case was not nice. And Hallie she's sort of like lower in society. She also has a traumatic past, and she was kind of rude too. But I felt like she tried to grow and make friendship with Case instead of being rude the whole time. And another thing, they would like have these super like connecting share about their traumatic histories together, and then the next day they would go back to calling each other names and being super childish and rude to each other, and it was just not very fun to read about or listen to, not read about. It just didn't feel like they had a relationship since they were just constantly belittling each other. And then finally, in this book, there are fake swear words like blast and stars and something else, and they were used so frequently, it was obnoxious. They were used in like every single sentence, and it made me cringe inside. They were constantly being used, the fake swear words, and it was annoying. So that's another reason I did not love this book. And I've been thinking about a rating, and I would say maybe a 2.5. It was like entertaining, but also not super fun to listen to at most times. But some parts were entertaining. The side characters were entertaining, but not really the main characters. Next, I have a classic which I'm super happy that I read, and that is King Arthur and His Knights. And this is the collection put together by Mary McLeod. And with how this was put together, I feel like it's not really in chronological order, as well as these stories are more about King Arthur's knights, not really about King Arthur himself. Like, they have the legend of, the pulling the sword out of the stone. But it definitely focused more on the other knights, like Lancelot, Tristram, and Sir Kay. But I'm really glad I read this one. Trying to read all of my children's classics, and these ones are really nice, except for there's literally a hole in the top. I don't know what happened there. So I read Robin Hood in this because I have the other ones are over on the shelf, as if you watch the bookshelf tour you probably know. But I'm happy that I read this. I do really like legends like this, I suppose. I think I want to try and read more about King Arthur and His Knights, because I read another book, like a nonfiction about it. So then I have my lamplighter that I got this month. This wasn't the original one that I wanted, but they were sold out of the one I wanted the day that the order got placed. So had to go for second best, but that's okay. And that's Throw Me Overboard. It's very tiny, and there's no author on here. And I did really like this book, except for I've found, like, I forgot to mention some books, actually, because I got rid of them, so I forgot to mention them. I'll talk about them after this one. I found with reading smaller books, I don't engage with them as much because I really like getting to know characters and I like reading about characters that have a lot of depth to them. And of course, in shorter stories, that's more likely not to happen. But this was still an enjoyable read. This follows two families, the Templetons, who are sort of rich people who go on vacation to this seaside resort town, and then the Valentines, who are poor fishermen people who live in that town. And it follows mainly Ned Valentine, and his courage and honesty gets tested with certain trials. And it was super sweet to read about, but like I said, it was super quick, so there wasn't a lot of depth to the story necessarily. But I'm still glad that I read it, and I think I would give this like, it's just hard because it's so short. Maybe a 4-star. And now going back to the books I forgot to talk about, I read the first 2 volumes of the Grimm's fairy tale books, and I did not really like them, and I gave them away to some friends. And it's not that I didn't really like them per se, it's more I didn't enjoy reading them. There was nothing wrong with the stories themselves, I just didn't enjoy reading it. As well as a lot of the stories were sort of copy and paste of other stories. Like in one volume, you had Little Red Riding Hood, the classic story, and then Little Red Cap, which is basically the same exact story except for she has a red hat instead of a red coat. And they were in the same volume. I'm glad with who I gave them away to. My brain's not working today. Next we have, again, one of my arguably favorite reads of this whole month, and that is A Little Princess by Frances Hodgson Burnett. I don't see the author's name's not on here. But this follows a little girl named Sarah, and it follows her from the age of 7 to I think about 13. And her and her father live in India, and her father's a soldier, and her father takes her to England to go to this boarding school while he's off. I don't think there's a war going on. I think he's just sending her to school in England. And it sort of just follows Sarah throughout her journey of a couple of years throughout this boarding school, through ups and downs. And Sarah's a very imaginative, very bright, unique girl, very old-fashioned. And I really loved reading about her. She was super funny and sweet, as well as all of the little side characters, and I loved how it ended. And I read this in a day. It was really, really good. I would give this a 4.5. It was really good. Lastly, for this month, we have A Gift for Abigail by D. Tilton. This is part of the Victorian bookshelf set that is some others on here. I just realized looking at my shelves, I forgot yet another book. So this is not the last one I read this month. But this follows Abigail Rainier, and her grandfather live on this boat in this town that used to be sort of famed for its whale ports, or not whaling. And Abigail's very bright, and both of her parents unfortunately are dead, so yeah, she lives with her grandfather, but through some circumstances she gets this opportunity to go and be this sort of accountant slash confidant and companion to this older rich lady. And Abigail's very ambitious. She definitely wants to move up in society and be rich, or not really rich, just like someone and well known. And then unfortunately, because a couple of characters in this book were horrible people, some rumors go around and her reputation is tarnished, and she moves away to London. And then it just sort of follows her story, and I really did like Abigail. She was super witty, and then in the latter years when she moves to London, she was like this super smart, tricked everybody else, because this was written in, I think, 1917. I'm not sure. But so she was definitely sort of she is very smart throughout this book in mathematics and the stock market, and maybe they moved to, I think this is set in America actually, and she moved to New York, not London. I don't know why I thought of London. I'm super glad I read this one. It was definitely very endearing, and the ending was really heartwarming. And this is the last one out of the Victorian Bookshelf collection that I haven't read, so now I'm glad that I have all of them read. Okay, I hope I'm not forgetting any more books, but the other two are Mother Goose's Fairy Tales, and this is just a collection of the classic fairy tales. And I liked pretty much all of them in here. What's crazy is the font size. Like here it's super tiny, and then in other stories it'll be huge. Like this one, it's super big. So, and the illustrations are pretty. That's Goldilocks. And I do like fairy tales. And I did like most of them in here. I think there was only one of them that I didn't like. And then, hopefully, lastly, we have Walt Disney's Bambi. This is just a picture book, really, but I really liked reading it. It's got really cute pictures, and I really loved the movie when I was little. That is all the books that I read in January. A January wrap-up. A bird just hit the window. Anyways, I hope to be posting more frequently. That should be happening, and I'm super excited for the videos I have in my brain that are planned out for this month, because I will be doing a book haul video when I get home from my shopping excursion on my birthday, which I'm so excited for. Once again, thank you to everyone who's watching and supporting the channel, and thank you so much for watching this video, and goodbye.